I am back to do another makeup look on my mom today. So my mom is currently 61 years old, and I've been saying this a lot, but my older brother's wedding is coming up. It's actually next week. And my mom asked for me to teach her how to do a makeup look that she can recreate herself on the actual wedding day because I won't have time to do her makeup that day. So I said, of course, I'll do your makeup, but I just have to film it for YouTube because you guys always ask to see my mom more on my channel, and you guys want to see how I do more mature skin and mature eyes and how I do that makeup. So let's get started. A lot of the brushes I use today are from my Sigma Favorites brush set. Now this brush set has my 5 go-to eyeshadow brushes in it, and I wanted to use it on my mom just to show that you can use some of these brushes on, droopier eyes, eyes that have more wrinkles and lines and a bit more loose skin. I'm going to go ahead and list and link all of the products and brushes that I'm using today down below because I might not mention everything as I'm going. But I started by priming her eyes with my favorite eyeshadow primer, and that is the Rare Beauty one. I like this one because it has a little bit of a tint to it, so it is going to cover up any discoloration on her eyelids and also just give me a nice smooth base to put eyeshadow on. And to apply and blend that primer, I'm using the E28 brush from my brush set. I did set her eyelids with just a little bit of translucent powder, and then the first palette that I went in with is actually the Urban Decay Naked palette. My mom wanted a look that was pretty soft on the eyes but would still look good in photos and just give her eyes a little bit of definition, but she also wanted the eyes to be a little bit pink because her dress for the wedding is dark purple. So first I took the E27 brush from my brush set with that shade Naked from the Naked palette. It's just a very soft brown shade, and I applied that throughout her outer crease and a little bit on her outer eyelid. Now because my mom does have some looser skin on her eyelids and she's also concerned about one of her eyelids being droopier than the other, I would first have her look at me so I know where to place that brush to get that brown shadow placed down, because I want to make sure that you can see that shadow when she's, just talking to someone. So I have her look at me so I can place that brown shadow above her natural fold in her crease. This Naked shade is very soft, so I just kind of blended out the edges and it blended out beautifully on its own. And then I took that very light kind of pink champagne shade called Sin and I placed that on the inner part of her lid. I really liked the brightness that added, but she wanted something a little bit more pink, so we had to dig around a couple palettes, and I actually pulled out the Too Faced Appley in Love palette. I'll list the shade down below that I used, but it's just kind of a deeper pink, so I placed that on the center of her eyelid and she was much happier with that tone of pink. And then after I layered on that pink shadow, I did add a little bit more of that brown Naked shade just to the outer corner of her lid. I also used a lot of my mom's products for this look, again, since she will be recreating this look herself. So she just got this new color corrector by Huda Beauty. It's the peach one, and she's really been liking it. So this is my first time ever trying out this product, and it's a very, deep, rich, peachy shade, so it really does color correct any of those kind of blue or purpley tones under the eyes that, she's a little concerned about. So again, I used that same E28 brush that I used for her eyeshadow primer to blend out the peach color corrector. And then I went ahead and applied her foundation. She's been a lover of the Too Faced Born This Way foundation for years and years now. Now the shade we used on her today is Natural Beige, and I was telling her it's a little bit too dark for her. I think that's her summer shade. I know she did go out and buy a slightly lighter shade for the wedding, so don't worry about the shade match. But I did try to blend that foundation as best as I could down her neck and around her ears to kind of make everything match up. And then she also uses the Born This Way concealer under the eyes, again in the same shade. I actually really liked the mixture of that peach color corrector with this more full coverage concealer. I thought her under eyes looked really good and not too heavy or cakey at all. And then she wanted to try out a cream bronzer because she's never used one before, so I pulled out my Rare Beauty cream bronzer stick in Power Boost, and I just did a very slight bronze with this around her cheekbones. I didn't really end up doing much to her forehead since she does have bangs, so I think I only put the foundation up there and then just set that with powder later on, so no bronzer on the forehead for her. And then for blush, I love putting a cream blush on my mom's skin. It just looks so healthy and glowy, so I used one of the Lawless cream blushes. Now she normally goes for a more peachy blush shade, but because her dress is dark purple, I wanted something more pink, so I went with this more neutral pink shade, and I thought it looked so good on her, and it just goes perfectly with the eyeshadow. Now, my mom was saying that she wanted her face to look lifted, so what I did, I took a little concealer that was lighter than the foundation shade, and I placed that right underneath the blush, kind of right below the apple of her cheek, following the outer corner of her lip. And I just drew a little line with that concealer to kind of brighten up that area and almost kind of lift up the apple of her cheek. I also wanted to do this too, since her foundation shade was a bit deep for her. I just wanted to brighten up this area to lift it. It made a very subtle difference, but I think it looks good. And then I just lightly set her face with the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish Powder in the shade 2. And then for under the eyes, I taught her to tap out the creases of your concealer with your finger first and then set your under eyes. So for the under eyes, I just used the lighter shade of that Charlotte Tilbury powder, so I used the shade 1. Now, since the last time you saw my mom on my channel, she did get her brows microbladed and also did a little bit of that powder method in her brows. She just naturally has very thin and sparse brows, so I thought the girl that did her brows did a fantastic job, so I really don't have to do much to fill them in. So I just took a little bit of the new Anastasia Beverly Hills volumizing tinted brow gel. I think I used a dark brown on her just to tint those hairs a little bit more. And this wand is nice too because the longer side will grab onto your hairs, but the shorter side of the wand can grab onto your skin. So you can tint your skin and your brows at the same time. I realized we didn't show this on camera, but my mom did do her own eyeliner off camera, and she just used the Stila Stay All Day liquid liner pen. And she just did a very thin and basic line across her top lash line. Now, I went back and forth on whether or not to add shadow to her lower lash line. I decided that the eyes needed that little bit of balance, so I just took a small smudge brush with that light brown shade Naked, and I smudged that across her entire lower lash line. And then she loves a bright white inner corner highlighter, so I used the Rare Beauty highlighter in Enlighten to highlight the inner corner and right under the brow. And then my mom's a big fan of the shade Champagne Problems from my palette with Sigma, and she wanted some of that on the eyelids, so of course I had to do that. This shade has a beautiful sparkle to it, so it just added a bit more pink and a bit more sparkle to the eyes, and I just tapped that right on the very center of her eyelid. And then I also added a little bit of that Rare Beauty highlighter to her cheekbones. Now, my mom did do a good job at drawing that liner across her lash line, but I just thought the black looked a little bit harsh, and I didn't really like the finish of that Stila liner, so I wanted to add a little bit of a dark shadow just on top of that liner, just to kind of smudge things out a little bit and give the liner a slightly softer look. So I took that deepest shade from the Too Faced Appley in Love palette, and I just ran that right across the liner that was already there. And I just think it gave a much softer effect to the eyeliner. And then she went ahead and did her own mascara and popped on her own lip. Now, my mom loves a moisturizing tinted lip balm, so she has this one by Neutrogena that she's been using for years and years, so that's the one that she applied. And then because this look is for a wedding, she's going to be in a lot of photos, you know, mother of the groom and everything, I wanted to pop on a tiny, tiny lash just on her very outer corner. So I took the most natural style from my lash brand, the Bright Lashes. The style is called Minimalist, and I cut it into the tiniest half lash, and I placed that on her very outer corner just to add a little bit more volume and thickness to that outer part of the eye to kind of lift it up. I thought she looked absolutely gorgeous, and this is the final makeup look for the wedding. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.